What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some pretty cool Destiny 2 stuff to talk about. So we do have some news from Bungie in the form of This Week at Bungie. They talk about Reckoning, Invitations of the Nine, and give us some interesting details about the Allegiance quest, and how that's actually going to result in some rewards throughout the season. So some pretty cool stuff there. Also some update changes that Bungie have put into the game. We also get a sneak peek at the tier 3 Reckoning boss. And it looks like this dude is a bit of a fan of ORYX. And on top of that, it looks like there is an interesting new character in the Destiny universe as well. So we'll cover it all in this video guys. If you enjoyed this one, a rating below super helps me out. But now let's get right into it. Before we get into the rest of the news updates guys, as we've been able to see in the triumphs for Season 6, we're actually going to fight a boss called the Likeness of ORYX inside of the Tier 3 Reckoning mode, so that sounds pretty cool. But right here we do actually get an early, brief glimpse at this boss in the game. So quick spoiler alert, but MHG Ghost sent me a pretty cool clip where their fire team got to see this early, and these guys were actually running a tier 2 Reckoning as reset happened, but instead of the normal tier 2 boss encounter, the pyramid type structure in the middle that we've seen in some of the trailers and stuff like that actually opened up, and they were able to go in, and you can see, defeat the Likeness of ORYX. We can see the boss in the back right there, and presumably this is some kind of glitch and not a hidden mechanic or secret. But nonetheless, the Likeness of ORYX is very much like one of the shades of ORYX from the Taken King story in Destiny 1, and I'm not sure about the lore here, but of course, we do also see the Likeness of Nokris boss inside of Gambit, so maybe someone's been collecting some real bad primevals somewhere. I'm no lore expert, but yeah, it's pretty curious that this guy is in the Plains of the Nine. On top of this, there does appear to be some kind of mechanic here as well, so you can see Counterfeit Gaze on the left tooltip. It's counting down, and when it hits 0, we can see that ORYX's likeness actually uses that old school Darkness Blast, and it wipes the whole team. So maybe it's an enemy that you need to kill before the timer runs out, could be a mechanic to become immune to it, or indeed to stop the Darkness Blast. But yeah, pretty cool stuff, and we should be seeing this guy in tier 3 Reckoning runs, and of course, that launches tomorrow at the daily reset time. And Bungie have confirmed a couple of things about Reckoning tier 3 in This Week at Bungie. So of course, firstly, we'll be able to start unlocking tier 3 armor, and once again, this activity will have a power level requirement of 680, and they say that players will have to fully upgrade their synthesizer to enter. Modifiers are also active in this playlist, so be ready to mix up your arsenal for the challenge. So importantly, that power requirement of 680 to actually get in, and I believe the enemies inside of this mode will be 690, so it's definitely going to be a challenge. But on top of this, right now, the Drifter does have his weekly bounty, which offers a synthesizer upgrade, and as Bungie say, we'll need to fully upgrade that one, so we'll have to have a legendary variant of it. And to do that, I believe you would have to completed the weekly bounty last week for the synthesizer, as well as the one this week. On top of this, Bungie say that matchmaking will continue to be available, but things may be a little trickier without strategy or communication, so prepare for some white knuckles as you race the clock to eliminate the darkness. So I'll be keeping it posted about tier 3, looks like we'll see some pretty cool stuff. Back into spoiler territory very briefly, and also this may kind of act as a bit of a warning if you don't want any spoilers, but there's kind of a big old leak floating around right now about Invitations of the Nine. Just like the tier 3 Reckoning bug we spoke about, players who were actually at Xur at reset, or were looking at his inventory, were able to pick up an Invitation of the Nine for this week, but also were able to complete it, and there has been a video of one of these online for a few days, and this has just been picked up by the community today, and it's kind of all over Reddit and things like that. I don't plan to play any of it in this video, because it is some cinematic content and it's kind of spoiler heavy, but an interesting spoiler right here that Bungie actually already basically teased by accident. So spoiler alert in itself, wow, so many spoilers. But when Bungie named the files in the press release for Season of the Drifter, there were some images right here which were labeled Stranger. Now, not like the Stranger in D1 presumably, but a different one. And Bungie actually said this was a typo, but just like was suggested from those early names, this does actually appear to be a new character in the universe, which is obviously pretty cool. And when I say new character, it could indeed be one that we've heard of before, but of course it's only just being presented cinematically in the game. And as I say, this is something we spoke about when we got this press kit, but indeed does look like a new character. But some of the story content here is going to be really exciting and more cinematic than what we've seen with the Allegiance quest or something like that, so I would personally recommend going and seeing any of this stuff for yourself in game. Now, on the subject of that Allegiance quest, the Vanguard or Praxic Order versus the Drifter, Bungie give us some further details. They say, depending on your choice with the Allegiance quest, you'll receive a set of rewards specific to your allegiance. Through the Allegiance quest, each side will offer unique lore, and each week you'll receive a small package as gratitude for your pledge. Throughout Season of the Drifter, depending on your pledge, one of these packages will be found at a Korra or Drifter upon each weekly reset. So essentially, the reward that we got at the end of the Allegiance quest is going to be a weekly reward that we'll get from that vendor. And for the Vanguard, that is powerful Vanguard gear, boons of the Vanguard, 10 Vanguard Tactician tokens, and an enhancement core. But for the Drifter, powerful Gambit gear, one of each synth, and 100 infamy points for Gambit. Actually, if you're playing the Gambit content, I think the Drifter is definitely the better choice, at least in terms of the weekly reward. But of course, this is news in itself. We didn't know that this would be a weekly drop. But yeah, it is something that we're going to be getting every single week, which definitely, I think, is more positive than the prospect of that being kind of a one-off reward. So let me know your thoughts about that down below. Of course, there's been a lot of mixed feedback about the rewards for that. But yeah, pretty interesting and slightly unexpected element right there. Now finally for the TWAB, Bungie talk about a few updates to the game. Firstly, the Gambit matchmaking has actually seen a bit of an adjustment that's gone live already. So Bungie say, Gambit is a team-based activity, and as such, players who are in pre-made fire teams have a communication advantage. To offset that advantage, we've raised the internal skill rating of pre-made fire teams to pull in higher skill enemies to fight against. With this change, even as a solo player, you'll still have a chance. Plus, your other matched fire team mates should be high skill as well. They add that solo players of low skill should expect to match other solo players more frequently, and higher skill teams will also match teams more frequently. So this is just in traditional Gambit right now, but of course, this is something that could be rolled out to Gambit Prime as well, and hopefully that's going to be a positive for all types of players in general. They also add that after hotfix 2.2.02, players will be able to exchange a stack of 5 synths from Gambit Prime for 100 Glimmer with the Drifter. The intention of this isn't to give players a means of acquiring large amounts of Glimmer, but strictly to help address inventory issues. So basically, if you've got too many of those synths, you will be able to trade them in. On top of this, in terms of modifiers for Reckoning, after the upcoming hotfix, they say they'll be replacing Glass with Prism, so then that will generally be well received. However, we don't get any more words about updates to powerful gear. Not sure if this is something that Bungie is still looking at. There is, however, a list of known issues in the update, which I'll link below. Otherwise, Bungie show off some pretty cool stuff in the form of new Bungie rewards, so a Thorn shirt and a replica Thorn, and some Gambit Prime jerseys as well, of course fitting for each of the new roles, so you can check that out. But Bungie are also running a bunch of Bungie bounties that take place in Gambit Prime. Next one will be March 20th at 10 AM PDT. That's for PS4, but there's also one on April 3rd, and that'll be over on PC. Up next though, let's talk about Season 7 very briefly. So first up, as we've seen for a lot of releases for Destiny 2 over the last year or so, it looks like Bungie are running another small community summit for the content that we'll see in Season of Opulence, of course, Season 7. And alongside quite a few content creators, Glad is one of the folks that'll be heading over there. And on top of this, Bungie have said that they're actually testing the seasonal content for Opulence in the studio right now. And of course, importantly, they also confirmed that there will be more content to come after Season 7 inside of Destiny 2. But it does make a lot of sense to bring along a well-known raider and community members in general when it comes to previewing this kind of content. But it definitely looks like raid content is certainly going to feature in the form of a new raid, but possibly in other reprises or similar experiences. We've got things on the roadmap, such as a new 6-player match-made activity. So it certainly sounds pretty cool, and there will also very likely be a lot of secrets in the next drop, both because of the links to Callus and the Leviathan, and of course the frame that we see in the artwork, who's holding the Traitor's Fate sword. You may remember that from Vanilla D2, linked to the story of Callus and Dominus Ghaul. There could be a lot of really cool stuff here, but also, this content drop will come from Vicarious Visions, and it's going to be their final project with Bungie following the split between them and Activision. Of course, Vicarious Visions are pretty well known for putting a lot of secret stuff into content drops for Destiny, and it's kind of sad in a way that they may be working on Destiny content, because a lot of their teams help to bring us stuff like the Age of Triumph ornaments. Some of that raid stuff from back in the day was pretty awesome, as well as this, Warmind, even Forsaken, the Scorn enemy race, and the full PC version of D2, folks at Vicarious Visions have done some really cool and special things. So as a community, and personally, I think it's really cool to thank everyone who's helped contribute to Destiny's universe along the way. Either way, we're going to be looking at that final content drop for the annual pass around June of this year, and then of course, as we know, Bungie will have more new content, maybe new content formats, possibly a big DLC release. Who knows at this point? It's certainly going to be another couple of interesting years for Destiny. But now for some other news and roundups briefly. For folks who have collected the Thorn, heads up, there is a lore book that you can pick up, and you get the chapters for this by actually killing enemies with the Thorn. So I believe the drops are random, but the book is called For Every Rose, a Thorn, and some folks are already speculating this could be a link to the next exotic hand cannon in the lineup that we heard about from the famous Anon leaks back in the day. And of course, the Rose hand cannon is one that we are supposedly getting in the game. But separate to that, it's a pretty interesting lore book with some kind of fascinating revelations about Shin Malphur, Callum, the Shadows of Yore, and how they are really kind of truly related to each other. And it's pretty crazy stuff if you guys are into lore. It's definitely something you'll want to check out if you haven't already. But of course, if you want details on the Thorn, the quest, or the weapon in action, then you can check out my second most recent video linked below. Curiously though, there are a couple of interesting perks which are listed in the database, and these will likely feature on weapons or indeed pinnacle weapons in the game in the future, possibly even catalyst bonuses. But we've got one called Hailstorm. Kills increase this weapon's damage and begin to steadily reload the magazine from reserves until you stop firing. And there is also, once more, reloading increases this weapon's damage if you hit with at least half the rounds in the magazine, but fail to kill anything. This is a pretty interesting one. And as we've spoken about here before, we gotta look at perks like Onslaught back in October, before Season 5, also perks like Armsmaster, which is now featured on the Recluse with a slightly different name. Either way, many of these have turned out to be featured on weapons at some point, so yeah, we'll probably see these maybe in this format or a slightly different one soon. But anyway guys, that is going to summarize the video for today, so let me know your thoughts about any of the stuff we've spoken about. But if you have enjoyed this one, a like below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more Destiny content. But for now, whatever you guys get up to, I appreciate you tuning in and hope you have an awesome day.